We're going to continue our deep dive into the Saints' draft history since 2015. Today is going to put a more favorable light on Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, Sean Payton in the front office, way more than day one. But do you think it's a coincidence, or is there some type of method behind the way that they choose day 2 picks and why they've been pretty successful?
No, not necessarily anything drastically different. I mean, I just think that they've done a good job of finding value in these rounds, and I think maybe the misses don't strike as hard as when you're talking about the first rounders. Like a Garrett Grayson in the third round doesn't feel the same as missing on Stephon Anthony in the first round, or having Trevor Penning struggle to get on the field a little bit. So I think just kind of the misses don't hit quite the same way, but they've definitely done a great job of finding some guys in these rounds. Some of their best players, Mike Thomas, Alvin Kamara, have come in these rounds. So there's definitely, I think maybe once you get into like the second round, third round, especially fourth round, I think maybe your scouting kind of shines through a little bit more there, and there's just kind of like a more, I think the process just kind of looks a little bit better in that range.
Yeah, that makes sense a little bit. Maybe less voices and more streamlined when you get there. Yeah, I was trying to decide if their day 2 picks are better than their round 1 picks, or if the stakes are just higher in round 1. I mean, some of the hits beyond Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are Marcus Williams and Eric McCoy and Pete Werner, Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor. The jury's still out. Like, those guys wouldn't have been home run first round picks, but it's just like your expectations are lower in round 2. Von Bell's another one. When you get into round 2 and then you get a guy that's as good as them, you're like, they nailed it. In round 1, you can't even be a Cesar Ruiz. You can't even be an Andres Pete. If they drafted Andres Pete in round 2, we'd say they nailed it. So I think a lot of it is perception, but their percentage of hitting in these rounds, especially when you grade it on what expectations are, is really high. I think it's better in rounds 2, 3, maybe 4. I'd probably stack it up if there was a formula compared to a lot of other teams in the league over the last decade.
All right, let's hit them year by year. In 2015, the Saints...
Not this year, though.
In 2015, the Saints' round 2 pick was Hau'oli Kikaha, and then Garrett Grayson in the third round, and then P.J. Williams also in the third round. Break him down.
Yuck.
Yeah, look, I think Kikaha is probably one of the worst picks I ever made. He ended up getting 8 sacks over 2 years, but he never had a position. He never really fit. It was kind of a struggle to get him going. The vision there was confusing, and then every single time they went back to it, the vision was confusing. I mean, if Caden Ellis hadn't figured it out in his final year here, every single time they did that, Davis Tall as well was another one that they tried to take as an end and make a linebacker. I don't know. There was this idea of making that work, and I just don't think it ever happened.
Zach Bond is another one that was a college edge rusher.
Yeah, Zach Bond. Yeah,
and they didn't have a position for him.
I think it was bad. Grayson, massive miss. P.J. Williams, I think, is low key one of the better value third round picks that they had. He stuck around for a while, filled a lot of roles, never cost a lot of money. Was a good locker room guy. It's too bad that he just kind of fell out of the league. I'm going to miss looking at the lavish Instagram posts.
Has he gotten more lavish or less lavish?
I mean, he's still living. He's still living for sure. PJ's never going to stop living. But, I mean, I'd like my guy to keep getting them NFL checks so he can keep living the way he's living right now, man. It's too bad. It's too bad.
Kikaha is interesting because I think one of the big debates that's come through the fan base over the years is should they change this reliance on their quote-unquote prototype. I know Nick has issue when people throw that word around, but the Saints obviously have a taste toward bigger defensive linemen, and whenever they went small, 6'2", 240 or something like that, they just did not know what to do with guys like that. We mentioned them. And so it just makes you wonder if your coaches are telling you, we don't know what we're going to do with this guy, then don't draft him. Like, what's the disconnect in the room when something happens? Now, this was the year that Jeff Ireland got hired in late January. So he came in part consultant, part being in charge, and they didn't make a pick like that, again, that high, that didn't fit. I mean, one of the things Jeff Ireland has brought to their board is, let's put 100 names on our board that we really like and target them. Let's not have a 400-name board. So that was a big miss. Gary Grayson, it's one of the worst.
Hold up, though. Kikaha and Bond, I think, though, were cut from the same cloth. Like, the idea was to take him from edge and make him a strong side linebacker, the Sam linebacker in the 4-3, have him be off the ball, not on the ball. And for some reason, like, they thought that they could find these traits and kind of take them from there and turn them into that. And I think the idea is that you get, like, the pass rush, and then they have good enough movement skills to where they can drop. And like they thought they saw it in Bond. I think they thought they saw it in Kakaha. I don't know that we were asking the right questions the day they drafted Kakaha because we didn't know what they were doing with these guys. And then by Bond, like we were, and then we were kind of getting like, well, yeah, we saw him drop on 23 plays and he looked good dropping. And, you know, you could see the zone blitzes and stuff like that. For whatever reason, this was something. And then, again, they kept trying it. They did with Caden Ellison and Davis Tall, too, later
in the draft.
Thankfully. But
with Bond, at least, they did say on draft day, they actually had a Mike linebacker future vision.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically said, this guy's going to play linebacker for us. With Kaká, they tried him out at defensive end for a little while, too. And then the coaches just didn't use him there. And then they moved him to Sam. And, yeah, with Bond, they thought they had a vision, but it turned out to not be a correct vision. Yeah. With Grayson, look, he's one of the worst picks they've ever made because it was a round 3 pick and he never saw the field and he was cut within a year. But I also don't absolutely hate the pick because you and I have both said, you know, it's a position that's important enough that you take some stabs at it after what. The Garrett Grayson there, the Ian Book in round 4, it doesn't mean the Saints are horrible at it. That's kind of the league's track record. But, you know, every once in a while you find a Dak Prescott or you find a Brock Purdy that way. So you just got to take some swings. That was obviously a swing and a miss, but the percentages are low if you take a quarterback. He just happened to be, I mean, he was just swimming. Maybe Jake Hayner will surpass what he did. He already kind of has.
If Hayner gets year 2, he's the first one since 06 that they've drafted that would stay on the team consecutively for 2 years. Like every guy that Sean drafted didn't. I know Sean has this like reputation for like the quarterback whisperer or whatever. His track record, he can change it, has not shown that he is good at scouting, drafting, and developing guys. He can maybe find, they got
some
Drew
Tony
Brees
Romo credit, but
sure,
yeah,
one guy.
That was a long time
it's
ago.
a lot of.
Yeah.
I mean, Drew, they kind of lucked into.
Yep.
Miami didn't want him. They got him. Like, it was a desperation thing. I'm just saying, like, the guys that he scouted. Now, I know all the quarterbacks he didn't get that he liked, but, I mean, the ones he did get just did not turn out.
Let's go on to 2016. A little more surefire right here. Round 2, we got Michael Thomas and Von Bell.
I mean, what can you say about this? I mean, we'll give Nick credit. We brought this up in a mailbag question a couple weeks ago where Nick was all over Michael Thomas, even suggesting him in round 1. Heading into day 2, a lot of people thought he was exactly what the Saints needed, and man, the rest of the league missed on that one. Nick just did the story on NewOrleans.Football. You got to check it out if you haven't already. Ranking every one of these picks since 2015. I mean, I would say there was a time where Michael Thomas was absolutely number 1. I think he fell to number 3 on that list because of injuries, but only because of injuries. This is one of the best picks the Saints have ever made in franchise history, and Von Bell was a really good pick for them too. Where they got him later in round 2, he filled a need and did a really good job in that position. The only reason they moved on from him is they're so good at drafting safeties. They drafted an even better one the next year.
Well, they were going to re-sign him. They had an offer on the table, and then Malcolm Jenkins got cut. They took the offer away from Von Bell and gave it to Jenkins. Bell was trying to negotiate a higher salary. It was kind of just posturing. They thought they had the deal in the bag, and they were fighting over details. And it was basically finished. And then Jenkins got cut. They pulled it out and went another direction. Yeah, I mean, the thing on Mike, I mean, the value in the spot, I mean, it's hard to beat it. It's just the injury thing, like you said, it's changed it a little bit. But 2 great picks. I might even argue that Von's gotten a little bit better since he left. Like, he gets interceptions now. He had 1, I think, in his whole time with the Saints.
He had a weird knack for fumble recoveries with the Saints, but he was a playmaker. He had a nose for the ball. It was a really valuable quality.
Solid player, for sure.
All right, let's go to 2017, the year that everybody knows about. We got Marcus Williams, Alvin Kamara, Alex Anzalone, and Trey Hendrickson. I mean,
scouting department. I mean, Jeff Ireland's name will forever be cemented. He did this in Dallas 1 year too, where just everything he did touched to gold. Like, it doesn't, you have a draft like this, you're cemented forever. And obviously round 1 was Marshawn Lattimore and Ryan Ramczyk that year. Now, some of these picks didn't rank as high on Nick's list, but that's only because the coaches didn't know what to do with them. Because since Alex Anzalone and Trey Hendrickson have left, they've had great careers elsewhere where they found a better fit for them. I mean, just you can't ask for better picks. Kamara is the one that's really interesting to me because they loved him. Sean Payton really liked him. They had a need for him, but they took Marcus Williams when they easily could have taken Kamara there, and they started working the phones immediately. And I didn't know the Saints had the patience that they had. It was about 30 picks before they finally made the trade for Kamara, but it was totally worth it to trade a future second round pick to get in the third because they had a second round grade on him. I mean, that ended up being number one on Nick's list. What a pick! More than just a player, culture leader, everything for this team.
Yeah, I would say Anzalone's almost even kind of a miss for the Saints, but he's put it together in Detroit. I mean, Trey obviously. Even it's tough. Like it's a great identifier. Like I think the pick deserves a good ranking. The organization itself for the handling of the pick, I think loses a lot of points.
Sure.
But definitely a great draft here.
2018, we got one of Jameis's favorite targets, Traquan Smith. Go.
Man.
You got it.
Good blocker. He made some tough catches. I think maybe at times he got a little more criticism than he deserved, but obviously the idea was bring him in to be the Mike Thomas running mate, and it just didn't happen. And then all the stuff he did at UCF, there's a lot of stuff saying he was like the best deep ball receiver in college football, and I don't think that translated. Overall, fine, but I think a little bit disappointing given the expectations. And you expect a little more out of a third round pick than 280 yards.
Yeah, he raised his own expectations bar too because he would show it once in a while. He'd have like the 100-yard game, he'd have the 2-touchdown game. He went off on the night that Drew Brees set the record. I think he caught the touchdown pass record ball. He had such high points, and then he would just disappear. I think a little disappointing, but not a horrible pick, just kind of probably an average for the position. But when they invested that third-round pick on a wide receiver and then the wide receiver room just fell apart a couple years later, it's too bad that they didn't hit a little better on that pick. But he's probably right in the middle range.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
2019, we got somebody who they had to hit on, and that was center Eric McCoy.
Yeah, he was their first pick that year. Because that was the year after they traded traded an extra first for Marcus Davenport. Didn't have a first in 2019, and then waited about as long as they could before they traded up a little bit from the end of round 2 to get Eric McCoy. And they just hit a home run with that. It was so funny. Somebody asked, following up our discussion last year, because we didn't get into this, when they traded away the 2019 pick for Marcus Davenport, it would have been the 30th pick in the draft because that was the year they lost to the Rams on the no call. Would have been the 30th pick in the draft. They said, well, who would the Saints have taken if they had kept that pick? Mm-hmm. And I scrolled down the list, and honestly, they might have taken Eric McCoy at 30. There aren't a ton of home runs between 30 and where they took him in the middle of round 2, so it was a great pick.
Yeah, let's go to 2020. We got Zach Bond and Adam Troutman.
Double misses.
Back to missing.
Double misses, yeah. I mean, look, the Zach Bond pick, I think, you could argue is one of the worst that they've made as
well.
They
used an extra third, too. It was 2/3 to trade up for that.
Even with a single third. Like, no vision, no usage, nothing. I know they kind of got a little bit of loose change out of him last year with 2 sacks, but not a good pick at all. And then, I think Troutman was incredibly disappointing, too. Like a tight end in the third round, you're supposed to get some production. Another small school guy, tiny school guy, not even small, like microscopic school guy, Dayton. Didn't work out, and, I thought he blocked decently at times, but just two big misses here. And these are the kind of picks that I think set you back and they hurt your cap. Like, these are the guys that you need to hit on, and that's where you kind of are able to have like a good depth on your roster and just two holes right there.
Yeah, they're both still in the league. Troutman followed Sean Payton to Denver. I loved the Troutman pick when they did it, even though they paid a ridiculous price for it. They got him at the end of round 3. They gave up like their 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So I loved it for a couple of reasons. We were done working for the entire weekend until the Tommy Stevens move. But look, Troutman was getting a ton of buzz at the Senior Bowl. I think a lot of people thought he might go as early as round 2. I felt my hopes were really high for that pick, and it was a big miss for sure.
We have a super chat from Matt. He says, pick after Bond. Jonah Jackson, inside linebacker from Ohio State.
Let's see. We're at, what year are we in right now?
We're in 2020.
2020. You're saying Zach Bond goes – or no. Where did Zach Bond go? 74, Jonah Jackson, the guard, who just signed a big free agent deal, goes with the very next pick. Absolutely. Hey, Lynn Bow Jr. a few picks later. It's funny. We remember that Nick revealed to us that he had inklings they liked Zach Bond even more. So when they got him in potential round one.
No, I mean, look, they tried to trade for him in the first round.
Yeah.
At the end of the first round, that's how much they liked him. It wasn't. They started making calls immediately after they made their pick, and they couldn't find anywhere to trade into. Like Mickey said that on the record. Like they were trying every single pick after their pick in the first round, and they never got there. And that isn't. I mean, it's definitely true. Like I tweeted a picture of Zach Bond the morning of the draft.
So when they got him in round 3, I was like, oh wow, look, they showed the patience not to overdraft him, and they got him in round 3 anyway. Felt like a win. It was a huge miss. Here's another name I see a few.
I'm not
going
to lie though either. Like I saw the vid. Like you go and you watch it, you can talk yourself into the vision, but you can kind of do that on when you're doing like after they draft someone, you're looking at what they can do, and you do start to see something. You're like, okay, well if he does this, if he does that, if he does that. When in hindsight, like obviously you should have been like, this is nuts. Like, why are you drafting this guy to play a completely different position this high? But if it hits, you're a genius, and if it doesn't, it's this. But I think it should have been the Kakaha thing and all that should have
been a big warning sign. Don't do this again.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, you said, did we ask the right questions? That was the questions we were all asking in the press conference. Like, how is this not going to be another Howley Kaka? And then it turned out to be. What I was going to say is, though, since he brought up who was picked after, about 10 picks later, 16 picks later, actually, in that round, Jonathan Greenard from Houston, the guy just made $20 million a year in free agent.
And look, the other thing, too, is like this is an era of a lot of the stuff they did, like, between 17 and even through 21, like it's kind of like everything they were doing at the time was right. Like they had just drafted extremely well. Like there was the Rick Leonard thing, but you kind of, you overlook it a little bit. It's like they have 17. It's like, well, they know how to draft. Like they know what they're doing. They got everything they do works. And then it just started not to very kind of quickly.
All right, let's go to 2021. We got some premier players here. We got Pete Werner in round 2, and then we have Paulson Adebo in round 3.
I'd say that these are both hits. Like I know Werner needs to turn around a little bit, and they're trying to see if there's competition for him. But you got 3 years overall. I think last year was kind of a dip a little bit, but you got 3 years of solid play out of him. It's a good pick in the second round. And then obviously Adebo it appears to be ascending. It's kind of funny. Like if you just look at cumulative good seasons and kind of where their stocks are right now, Pete's probably had more good seasons than Adebo, but Adebo's last season was good. And Pete's last season wasn't quite. So the arrow feels more up on Adebo than Werner, but we've seen probably more good games from Werner than we have Adebo.
Well, and that was Cesar Ruiz in round 1, and for a while Cesar Ruiz would have ranked 3rd, and Pete Werner would have ranked 1st, clearly far and away. And the whole order has gotten shaken up a little bit, but I still like Werner's potential. I like the pick. That's a really good solid round 2, round 3. Like that's sort of like above replacement value. If you're gonna have a second and a third round pick, I think your expectation is you're going to hit at about this rate. Every once in a while, you get your Kamara, you get your Michael Thomas or whatever. That you can't even expect that. This is what I think you can realistically hope for when you have those kind of picks is guys like this.
You talk about Kamara and Mike. I ran a poll in the chat, and right now with 5 minutes in, it's 82-18 as Kamara being the favorite day 2 pick. So, I mean, if you guys are looking for exactly what we think over here at NewOrleans.Football, you can go to the website and check out Nick's latest article ranking the picks from 2015 to today.
Yeah, so it would go on. I'm sorry, it would go in reverse order, huh? For 21, the picks: Adebo, Werner, Turner. Like that's definitely
that was Cesar Ruiz.
Ruiz was 20.
So I got him wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, well then definitely Peyton Turner would rank last on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Who else did they take?
As that draft continued?
Ian Book at the bottom. Yeah, Ian Book at the bottom. Landon Young was kind of a sneaky good pick, though.
For sure.
3 years as a sixth-rounder. Like, that's a hit.
I'm telling you, it will not be a shock if Landon Young is lining up as their starting right tackle the first day we go out at OTS. They're going to give him the same way that we think they're going to give Nick Saldivari a chance to show that he can earn it. They're going to give Landon Young a chance to do something. Now, I'm not betting on him winning it or whatever, but he could even exceed his current value.
I'll give you that as a possible, but the fact that he's their like not out of
Yes.
not
Yes.
out of the reason
Yes.
you want him to be there.
But you know what? Could he not move ahead of James Hurst this year?
Yeah,
Like,
no
or
doubt,
something
no
like
doubt,
that.
no doubt. Yeah, I agree with that. I hope he does. I like him. Good
Yeah.
guy. Good guy.
Yep.
Let's hit 2022 and Alontae Taylor.
Yeah, good pick. I mean, good pick. I
We
think,
think, yeah.
I think the arrow. There's a path where the arrow goes up. There's a path where the arrow does. Like I think if he just fully embraces being a slot cornerback, and if he trains this whole offseason with that in mind, I think he could be way better at that position. But I maintain that I think his ultimate best
Yeah.
spot is on the outside, and that might end up having to be somewhere else. Like I don't know.
Yeah, there's potential for him to be a Zach Ball and Alex Anzalone, whatever, like where we're like, they didn't have the right vision or fit for him here, and he could fit somewhere else better. Look, I mean, the fact that he could move into the slot when he was their number 3 corner, and they're like, well, we're going to move you to a new position you're not comfortable with, and handle himself well, and then hopefully even better this year. I think that speaks to him, but it's not shining him in the best light. So his arrow's kind of been a little all over the place, but still a pick you feel good that they made that you have in the building, I think.
Yeah, and then let's go to last year. We got Isaiah Foskey in round 2 and then Kendre Miller in round 3.
To be determined on both.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're more excited about Miller than Foskey after what we saw in year 1. I was so surprised that Foskey just seemed like in over his head. Really in training camp, he looked like a guy from a small school that only started 1 year, not a guy who had been a 2-year starter with double-digit sacks both years at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But that's being a rookie. So we're going to learn a lot about Foskey, I think, here in this second year. Miller, meanwhile, we're probably heaping expectations too high on him